hasn't been answered. And this is being recorded. So if you're ever worried about something you're asking being recorded, please keep that in mind. The other thing for Zoom is you can send in reactions. And so if at the very bottom, you hover over the bottom, there's a little thing that says reactions with a little smiley face. And so if any of our speakers say anything great that you want to react to, please feel free to use that.
Excuse me, Suzanne. I have neither chat nor smiley face at the bottom of my screen.
Oh,
did you put your pointer down to the bottom?
I just found chat, but I don't know how to use chat. I don't know how to use that. So yeah. I will just enjoy everybody else's comments.
Hey, Jody, I want to make you aware too. I mentioned Buck Blanchard, who served under you. Yes. He just got on the call.
Oh no, I'm discovering the number of you that I know. Oh my.
Hello, Jody. Last time I saw you was on the front porch in Jamde, Togo in 1981. So.
Oh, I remember that.
But we did have a cup of chukatu together, so there you go.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, I remember the chukatu. Oh dear, it was like dishwater. Yeah, now my chook story is that I would go to a village and the village chief would always give me chook in a calabash. And I know you would give some to the ancestors before you drank. So I was always very generous with the ancestors. Then I took my one swallow and then I would turn to the Peace Corps volunteer next to me and say, he looks hungrier than me. And I would turn it to that person.
Yeah.
That sounds familiar.
I just want to add one thing I was in Peace Corps 67 to 70. I just got off of a Zoom meeting with Friendship Force of Northern Colorado. But I noticed that over on the right of the screen, you can go to, I'm on screen 1 of 3. If I get that little blue box, click on the arrow, I can go on to screen 2 and see more people, and screen 3 and see more. So if you're not seeing someone, just click on that and it'll take you to another page. So if you're on a page and say, well, where is she? Be aware that you can go left or right. There are 3 pages at the moment.
So there's 25 on each, and hypothetically that's going to double before we're done here. And with that, I'm going to start the meeting. So Nizza, do you want to put everyone on mute?
Okay.
And I guess I'm still unmuted, which is good. Okay. Good evening, everyone, to RPCVs of Colorado interview of Peace Corps Director Jody.
Someone muted Charlie. Hold on, Charlie.
Charlie, you got muted.
Charlie, stop.
There you go. Okay. Start again. Good evening, everyone, to RPCV of Colorado's interview of Peace Corps Director Jody Olsen. Hi, I'm Charlie Hunt, and I'm the president of RPCV of Colorado. Our organization has reached out to other NPCA regional groups to attend this event. So besides many RPCVs from Colorado, we have guests from Hawaii, California, Wisconsin, Illinois, Texas, Kansas, and Washington State. So welcome to everyone. Last count, we had over 175 people register attendees for this event. We also have a few Rotary leaders that were invited to hear Jody's presentation due to the partnership agreement between Peace Corps and Rotary International. Jody has also brought Andrew Wilson, the director of Third Goal at Peace Corps. Jody and Andrew will talk for about 25 minutes based on pre-submitted questions that have come from you, our RPCV of Colorado community. During that time, feel free to enter additional questions into the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and our moderators will continue the conversation with Jody and Andrew when they have completed their comments. Please be sure to keep yourself muted during the program. So let's get started. I have the honor of introducing our moderators this evening, Jeannie Ritter and Suzanne Smith. Jeannie Ritter is the former First Lady of Colorado and served as a PCV in Tunisia 1982 to 1983. Jeannie is the Vice President and Mental Health Ambassador for Mental Health Center of Denver. Jeannie began her advocacy work around mental health and wellness while serving as the First Lady of Colorado more than 10 years ago. She continues to work to advance integrated care efforts, increase mental health literacy, expanded support, and ensure access for mental health services across the community. Suzanne Smith currently serves as the Advocacy Chair of RPCV of Colorado and is the current past president of our organization. Suzanne served as a health extension volunteer in Mongolia from 2005 to 2007, and she now works for a Denver-based nonprofit that supports community health centers. With that, I'll turn the mic over to Jeannie to do introductions of our guest.
Great, and Charlie, thank you. This is a huge effort, and I want to thank you, Charlie. For those of you, this is quintessential Charlie and Nancy. They move in our community in Denver in this exact way. So just real connectors and elevating voices. And so I really appreciate you putting this together. Hi, Dr. Jody. And thanks, she just slipped into the call and, it was just one of us. So I feel very silly doing this formal introduction, but, and I'm really looking forward to kind of fleshing out so much. But what I want to make sure folks know is that we're really getting our money's worth tonight in terms of, I actually think your bio's written upside down because I just love the trajectory of you inside Peace Corps. And so as we posit these questions tonight and engage with you, we're getting the whole scope of Peace Corps, right? So everything from your own volunteer service in Tunisia, marhaba, from 66 to 68, you just kept moving through, country director, regional director, deputy director, acting director. You've just held so many roles inside chief of staff, which I think would have been fascinating. That's that front row seat. But here we have you as the 20th director of the Peace Corps, and since 2018, and I just think it's a huge opportunity. We're really fortunate, and joining you, good move, Dr. Jody, is Andrew Wilson. And Andrew, I just think it's going to be a great opportunity to have access to you in terms of your role as the return volunteer services person. So I can't even imagine what you've lived through over the last several months. And then also just you're the director of the Office of the Third Goal, but just I think it's really fortunate for us to have you on the call in terms of just the innovation piece that you've worked with in so many offices. And because I think a lot of our questions are going to be exactly that. What is the next version? How do we take the Peace Corps to the next level? How do we as returned Peace Corps volunteers engage in all that? So my job is easy tonight. I think we have a really animated group, so I'm wishing you both as speakers good luck. And then Suzanne and I will be monitoring the chat, and let's see what happens. So thanks so much.
Okay, I think it's my turn. It is so much fun to be here. I feel like I've joined a family, and we have all been through a lot. We know what we've been through. And so I feel very lucky to chat with everybody tonight. And let me just in the beginning, first, I want to thank President Charlie Hunt. Thank you, Charlie, for organizing all of this. I also want to thank you, Jeannie Ritter, and yes, our good old Tunisia activities. And I really appreciate the introduction and all you're doing. And to Suzanne Smith, who's the current past president and advocacy chair, thank you. And I think I'll try to make my job for you two as easy as possible. We'll see. I know several of you, but I wanted to do just a quick shout out. I'm hoping that Ken Goodson is in the group. We'll see. But I see Lillian, oh yeah, I see Lillian Bear, and I see Arlene Mitchell. I just want to put a sidebar. Arlene Mitchell interviewed me to be Peace Corps director in Togo in 1979, and she was fabulous. And I think she was fabulous because she let me go to Togo. So thank you, Arlene. Steve Warner, thank you for all your work with Rotary and what you do for Peace Corps. And I also see Margaret Riley. I thought, Margaret, that you were in North Carolina. What are you doing in Colorado? Or are you still in North Carolina? Wherever. Thank you. It's so good to see you, Margaret. And all of you, the Colorado Return Peace Corps volunteers. Just to note, I'll speak for just a few minutes. Then I'm going to turn it over to Andrew Wilson, who's going to talk about the RPCV part of Peace Corps, which is bigger and grander than ever. And then I'll come back in and I'll talk about who we are right now on our return to service. And in the process, and then we'll get done to offer plenty of time for questions. I'm weaving in the questions you asked me in advance, so hopefully you can hear the answers as we go through the program, because the questions were very thoughtful and I really appreciate the questions. As you know, for Colorado, and I'm very excited about being able to talk in Colorado. I've been to both University of Colorado and Colorado State, and they both are leaders with Peace Corps. Colorado State had a couple of the Peace Corps founders who created that original towering task that launched Peace Corps through Sarge Shriver. So Colorado has a strong, strong Peace Corps background, including almost 7,000 returned Peace Corps volunteers from Colorado. And as you know, just to sort of bring us all up to speed right now, we have served in 142 countries. Our 143rd, by the way, is Vietnam. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And as we look where we are around the world, or where we should be around the world, we're almost half in Africa. And then we're sort of equal parts in Central and South America, Eastern Europe and Central Asia. I noticed several of you from that part of the world, Asia, Caribbean and Pacific Islands, and North and Middle East. I'm so sorry that we're only in Morocco. I wish we were in more of the Middle East, but Morocco has held its ground and have been a great program for us. Now, as you know, on March 15th, I always see it as the Ides of March, I made truly the most difficult decision of my life. I mean, my Peace Corps journey started 54 years ago. And Peace Corps is in my blood, Peace Corps is in my soul, it's who I am. So to have to make that decision to leave, pull all 7,000 Peace Corps volunteers out of 61 countries was awful. It was awful. However, there was no choice. And it's interesting because we had tracked it up to that moment, and that we had to move, and we had to move actually on that day. The airlines were closing down and the countries were closing their borders, and they were doing it by the hour. And we did it just in time. And in fact, over the next 8 days, in bringing the 7,000 Peace Corps volunteers home, we actually had to use charters for almost half of the volunteers because the flights had already closed down. It moved that quickly around the world. And it was a real statement about Peace Corps because it was a whole of agency, a whole of country, a whole of host country national staff, of airlines. Ethiopia Airlines almost became our charter airline. They rearranged flights, they rearranged size of their planes to help get us out, for example. And so counterparts, embassies, countries themselves, hotels, restaurants, all were able to make this happen because they said, we love you, we love Peace Corps volunteers, and we know why you have to go back. And also, as you know, here you are doing this fabulous job in whatever country you're in, and you've just done an English lesson, and you've got all the kids, and the kids are saying more and more, and you're singing and dancing, and then you get a note on your cell phone that you have to leave. And to have 7,000 volunteers get that note, knowing that they had, in some case, hours, some case a couple of days, some cases 4 or 5 days to return home. Frustrated, angry, bewildered, fearful, coming back to what happens next when they hadn't planned on what happens next. It was so difficult, but I want to say how proud I am of every one of those 7,000 returning Peace Corps volunteers. They were strong. Nobody got sick. Nobody got hurt. Nobody got lost. They all quarantined for 14 days. If they didn't tell us. No, they all quarantined. They were wonderful. We worked so hard to give them what we could in terms of extra health insurance, to give them evacuation allowance if they didn't have the readjustment allowance, everything we could do with non-competitive eligibility, et cetera, because it was horrible. It was difficult all the way around. But I honor every one of those 7,000 now, what we call returned Peace Corps volunteers, several of whom are now working at Peace Corps. But emotionally difficult, but we learned a lot. And as part of that support, we really have strengthened and integrated our RPCV support and programming. And so we are, in addition to providing that support, but we're giving more tools. We've been learning these past 7 months what you can do virtually. As you all have been learning, and it's amazing what we can do magically that we never thought we could do before. So with that, we've been able to reach out more to our RPCV community. And so with that, I want to introduce Andrew Wilson, who has been with Peace Corps now for 6 months. He's RPCV Senegal, and was really fun to show how we can work. He's been doing such a great job, and I've never met him. So we get to see each other every day as we work, and yet we have never met face to face. So with that, Andrew, I'm going to turn it to you to talk about the RPCV services that you have so wonderfully helped put together. And Shannon, I want to do another shout out for Shannon because she has been Andrew's partner. Go ahead, Andrew.
Thank you so much, Director Olsen. And actually, the only person I've met so far is the person who gave my badge the one time I went into the office. I've only met one staff member yet so far. But it's been a tremendous family to be part of again, and I'm so happy and grateful to be part of it and to meet all of you here today. So again, thanks to the RPCVs of Colorado, all the RPCVs that came together today to arrange and participate in this event. I actually had the really good fortune myself to live in Chautauqua Park in Boulder for a few months after I got my my undergraduate degree. And to this day, you know, I rue the day I left and I had the flat irons in my backyard there. It was a wonderful, wonderful place to be. So if you feel like a little bit of envy coming through the screens there today, that's probably coming from me. But you know, I'm not here to talk about myself and sort of my reminiscence of the Rocky Mountains, rather talk about the work that we're doing for and with RPCVs. First of all, you know, Director Olsen just mentioned this, as challenging as the evacuation was and the aftermath, it has been for both the volunteers and for Peace Corps itself. You know, as with any crisis, it has offered us opportunities to bring sort of focus to what's really important, to learn what worked or what didn't work, and to serve as a catalyst for continued growth in the organization. Since coming on board in May, as the director referenced, I was actually paired with Shannon, my esteemed colleague there, who put this event there together tonight, to co-chair a cross-agency task force to look at support and engagement of RPCVs around the evacuation, with a clear goal of making sure that we learn from what had been done and to see where we could actually continue to improve. The task force had participation from offices across the agency, and at the end of a fairly intensive amount of work, 80 separate action items were created. And I'd be more than happy to talk about every single one of them, as I'm sure Shannon would as well, but I know that's not what people want to probably hear tonight. So I'm just going to highlight a few of the things that we learned out of that and what we're actually doing about it now. So one of the things the key things that we learned was about the scope, scale, and the nature of the support for RPCVs. Obviously, it's a vast network, and it includes, in Peace Corps itself, there's actually 12 different offices that, as part of the evacuation, provided support for RPCVs. And I know when we shared that with Director Olsen, I think she was even surprised herself about all the sort of the support that was coming from different offices. And then on top of that, you have all the local, the national, the employer-based RPCV groups, including RPCVs of Colorado and the NBCA Global Reentry Program that started this past year. And then beyond that, you have an increasing number of groups that spontaneously self-organize on social media, on social networking sites. Really great story of Joshua Johnson, an RPCV, started the COVID-19 Peace Corps evacuation support group on Facebook, which has roughly 10,000 members right now, and just did an outstanding job of finding support sort of when and where people needed it, whether it was a place to stay, whether it was they needed some money, whether they needed information, really provided outstanding support. So, you know, first and foremost, it's tremendous to see the continued strength of our community and that there continue to be so many people and so many groups that are ready to support RPCVs. At the same time, when we look back at this, there were some challenges. So in Peace Corps itself, we have all these offices that are providing tremendous amount of support and people working, you know, tirelessly day after day to make sure they can do the best they possibly can on behalf of RPCVs. But there had been sort of historically a lack of coordination and communication amongst these offices internally. And that's an area we know we can improve upon. And then also what we found in talking with RPCVs and listening to what they had to say, the amount of information they were getting could be overwhelming, not just from Peace Corps, but from other outside groups. And you think about what's coming through in social media and the news, it really was a lot for everybody. And just trying to navigate that to find out what was most important and where they needed to go, you know, was a challenge at times. So with these challenges in mind, what some of the actions we're taking to try to address this, really at the foundation of this is a shift that we're trying to do is designing our processes with RPCVs at the center of what we do. It starts with listening and understanding the perspective of return volunteers. And one of the things I'd like to mention there is we say RPCVs, and I think it's easy just to say that, and we think, you know, we know what that means because, you know, we all have been volunteers. But really, RPCVs are not one sort of monogamous or homogenous group. It's not one type of individual. It's a collection of individuals, and people are at different stages of their life and different stages of our career, and people can engage and need support at different levels at each of those different stages. And we at Peace Corps really need to think about how we engage with those different groups, sort of when and where they are and what they might need at those particular points in their life. Second, another thing that we're working on is streamlining communications. As I mentioned, there's an overwhelming amount of communications. I think everybody probably feels at this stage. You're getting communications from so many different ways, so many different emails, so many different sort of things on social media or on the news. How can we do a better job of making that simpler for our RPCVs? So our office recently restarted a newsletter. We actually had one from our office a year or so ago that ended, and we just restarted this. But the difference here is we're not meant to be a newsletter from the Office of the Third Goal and Return Volunteer Services. Is meant to be a newsletter for all RPCVs, for all the different offices in the agency, so we can streamline that communications and make sure that people know where to go to get the information. Third, through events like this, we want to continue to strengthen our connections with RPCV groups and share the lessons learned of what's worked in other places and what's worked well. A really good story about this, and I know I saw at least one person from Ukraine on an RPCV from Ukraine on here. Really great story. As soon as the Alliance for Ukraine, one of the RPCV groups, as soon as they heard about the evacuation, they mobilized almost immediately and knew that they wanted to provide support to the people coming back home. And they set up really quickly a mentorship program. And I know from listening to what they had said, Director Olsen was gracious enough to join a call with them a few months ago. We heard about that mentorship program. And when they did an evaluation, almost everybody from both sides of that, both the mentors and the mentees, had a tremendous level of satisfaction. And that's a great thing that we can try to propagate and share elsewhere. We recently, we reached out to them. We actually, after that meeting, got a blog. We put it on the Peace Corps website, and now we're working to get that information out via our newsletter so more people can learn about that success and hear about it and find ways to replicate it. And it's just active engagement for RPCVs. It's not just networking and career support and mentoring, but it's also that sense of community. It's that sense of belonging that is so important in the support system that we all really need right now. Moreover, this engagement is not just limited to RPCVs, and it's really also about, recruiting the next generation of volunteers. Director Olsen always says, and I believe this wholeheartedly, RPCVs are the best recruiters that we have. And I've heard over and over from the folks that I've engaged with so far that what really inspired them to become a volunteer is the story they heard, or the people they interacted with who heard those stories themselves. And really, that's really important. So think of the role of RPCVs really as recruiting the next generation. And then really working to make sure that that unprecedented level of cross-office coordination that started as part of the evacuation, that we continue that in the future. Shannon and I recently transitioned a task force, which always was going to have sort of a time limit to it, to something that now we call the RPCV Coordination Committee. So the agency can build upon the improved coordination and collaboration that took place as part of this effort and really extend that into the future. So finally, I really want to close my remarks by shifting what we've done to improve our support and our sort of the collaboration and support that we're providing to our RPCVs, to how we celebrate and highlight the impact of RPCVs here at home, and how we're working to capture the benefits that accrue to the United States from the Peace Corps, and something that we've been calling internally the domestic dividend of Peace Corps. Really, the Peace Corps mission and goals, they've never been more relevant than they are today, even 60 years after the founding of Peace Corps. There's over 240,000 RPCVs across the country, but really the full impact of these return volunteers remains really an unappreciated benefit of the taxpayers' investment in the agency. To address this, we're exploring ways that Peace Corps can better capture and share the amazing story of how RPCVs benefit their communities, not just where they served, but the communities right here at home. We all know RPCVs have unique global perspective and skills that U.S. communities, governments, and private industry all need. We know RPCVs have relationships in their home countries through which they continue to promote Peace Corps goals and missions, and through which they continue to work together to advance sustainable solutions for some of the most pressing global challenges. We know RPCVs are committed to civic engagement, service, diversity, and inclusion. We know RPCVs are educating and inspiring the next generation of global citizens. And we know RPCVs are making an impact in the communities and workplaces here in the United States. A first important step in this direction around the domestic dividend, we were actually able to bring on a full-time detailee from the Department of State, a woman named Sonia Urban, who I believe is on the call today. And she's starting to build this framework by which we will capture, document, analyze, and share the Peace Corps domestic dividend. The Peace Corps has a wonderful history of sharing the stories of RPCVs and their impact in the field, but what we need to do is a better job of telling the stories of RPCVs here at home in the United States. It also means developing a quantitative and replicable methodology for capturing not just the stories, but the data around this impact. However, while we're working on this larger plan, that's not stopping us from moving forward now. We have restarted the Franklin Williams Award, which recognizes ethnically diverse return Peace Corps volunteers who demonstrate a lifelong commitment to civic engagement, service, diversity, inclusion, world peace, and the Peace Corps' third goal. The award nominations form for this is actually on the Peace Corps website right now. Nominations are open. They're going to be open until November 13th, which is next Friday. And tentatively, the award ceremony for this event is for December 15th. We're also working on a new thought leaders speaker series that will start this winter that focuses on the impact of RPCVs in targeted fields. The first one of these is going to be around philanthropy, with subsequent topics on women and girls empowerment, and then on technology and innovation. So just for me to close quickly here, we welcome your thoughts and input on how we can best demonstrate to the American public and to our elected officials the benefits of Peace Corps to the United States. How can we best tell the story about the Peace Corps domestic dividend? And really would invite anybody on the call today who has ideas about how Peace Corps can do this, or would like to tell us more about your own personal story of how the impact you've had here at home, to send us an email at impactathome@peacecorps.gov. I'll drop a link in the chat for that, or that email address in the chat later on. And that's all I have to say, at least for now. So thank you so much. Really appreciate being here today. Thanks for Director Olsen for allowing me to join her. I know she's the star of the show, but really great to be here today. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Andrew. Andrew, you have the most specific information that I think is useful. Thank you. And what I'm going to now turn to is what happens next. Who are we now and over the next 60 years? As you know, we're all working together to ensure that our volunteers return to the field when safely possible, as soon as possible, but we must be safe. And it's so interesting is that starting October 14th, celebrating the time when then candidate Kennedy spoke on the steps of the Student Union at the University of Michigan at 2 in the morning and introduced those famous words that later became Peace Corps. So from October 14th through March, which is when the executive order was signed, and then through September, when the actual legislation was signed, we're celebrating 60 years. And these 60 years are so important because they're the framework for our going back. It frames the return, which means that as we go back to our 61 countries, it's in the 60th year. And we want another 60 years, and we're determined to go back and to make this year so strong that we are launching what are going to be the next 60 years. And we're doing it effectively, we think, even though slowly. But just a little bit about what all that means. We're staying in close touch with all the RPCVs, the evacuated RPCVs, and we have upwards of 2,400 of the 7,000 who returned, who are saying we're ready and able and we want to go back. And we stay in touch with them. We stay in touch with all the invitees that were not able to go, and we continue our recruiting effort. And we have strong support among people who want to serve in the Peace Corps. And we have, over these past 2 or 3, 4, 5 months, built a very strong and a very detailed plan to return to our countries of service. When we had to leave, I thought maybe we'll be gone 2 weeks, maybe we'll be gone a month, oh, at most 2 months, having no idea how serious this virus is, and that this virus has affected all of our countries of service, even as it has affected us here in the United States. And so we have had to lay out a very specific plan for each and every one of our 61 countries to return, to make sure that we are going to provide the health, the support, the background for those volunteers to return safely and return to the countries as the countries are now, as each of the countries are recovering from COVID. A couple of things as we go forward, and what has been really satisfying for me in this very, very difficult situation is that all the countries, all 61 countries want us back, everyone. We have our full staff in our countries. We have the US direct hires. We have our host country national staff. They are all there. They are all interacting. They are all ready, eager to help us come back. In addition, as I mentioned, we signed a Peace Corps country agreement with Vietnam. And even within COVID, we signed the order to get us ready to go. We have met with the ambassador from Vietnam to the US, and our brand new country director, Kate Becker, just arrived in Hanoi last week. And Vietnam says, hey, we want a new program here even before maybe you even get some back to the other countries. Our Minister of Education in Uzbekistan, we left Uzbekistan about 15 years ago. He said, as soon as you can, in fact, come virtually for the first while. We're working virtually to look at how we can get back to El Salvador. So our 61 countries, and yet other countries that want us, either back or new, are very strongly working with us as partners. Our USG partners and our international NGO partners. I was at a PEPFAR principals meeting this afternoon, PEPFAR, the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, which we've participated in for 17 years. They know that we're not in the field right now. I was able to describe what our staff are currently doing vis-a-vis PEPFAR, and they have said, we're waiting, we know you're coming back. The USAID Small Project Assistance Program, they have continued the resources because they say, we know you're going back. The Malaria Initiative, these other initiatives, they said, we're standing by you, we need you back. All our stakeholders, the stakeholders that help bring us money and make sure that legally we stay where we need to stay. So specifically, OMB has been a tremendous support, as well as the Hill. That obviously, you look at budget, you look at numbers, we have gotten our full budget. OMB and the Hill have given us our full budget, even without Peace Corps volunteers. They say, we want you back. We need you back. We have walked through with them very carefully what we're doing, the details of what we're doing, so that they have the confidence to know that we're not going to go back too early. They have a lot of concerns about health. They ask us a lot of details about health, as they should. But as we walk this through with them, they say, we're with you all the way. Again, it's important that we are very proactive in what we're doing to tell both the Hill and OMB that they are with us at this time, and which is so important. We have been able to announce that our very first countries, and we had what we would call kind of a big virtual celebration at Peace Corps when 2 weeks ago we announced our first country that we're able to return to in January, which is one of the first 5 countries that Peace Corps went into in 1961, St. Lucia. Let's say it's not the biggest country that we have been in, but there it is, strong and steady with St. Lucia. We just last week announced that we're going back to Cambodia. And early next week, I can announce the 3rd country, which is in Africa. And then we're starting to see, with real carefulness, following up in February and March and April, that we are able to begin to go back. Now, our going back is careful, particularly now, because we don't want to find ourselves back and then have to leave if something happens. So we're going to slowly grow. So the first volunteers going back, it's a very limited number. It could be anywhere from 5 to about 25. We're limiting how far away from healthcare facilities that they serve, so that we will not be all over the countries. And for many of the returning RPCVs, probably not to the sites that they were in before, because we need to ensure that we can maintain strong health. This is for the sake of the volunteers, their families, everyone here, and those in country. And with that, it means that some of these first groups going back will probably be doing projects that we might not have done before. And as several people had suggested, we might be getting a little bit more involved in public health. In other words, communicable health education and working in communities. It's very complex in figuring out how to do this and staying safe. There's also interesting in going back, we're going to have to be more careful in those first groups about the health of the volunteers going back. And we all know that there's some comorbidity issues with COVID-19, and we need to be respectful of being able to ensure that we're sending people who are not at a high risk. So we start gently, we start carefully, and we slowly build. And I think our chance to build will grow exponentially when we actually begin to get access to the vaccine, which at least as I've talked to leaders in different parts of the government, including CDC, should be within the next few months. We've also realized in going back, we have to be humble. We have to be very humble, because we're asking permission to return. Countries have to say, we trust you. We trust you to stay healthy, but more importantly, we trust you to help keep us healthy. We have to show that we can be there responsibly. And we are becoming true partners with our counterparts, with the ministries in where we go, what we do, and meet their expectations of us. And I've appreciated that humbleness with how we look at how we go back. We think that as we go back, that we will have hopefully some added skills, such as side-by-side development of IT, education, distance education, again, side-by-side, because we're about the 3 goals, but we're all learning new skills. For example, in Uzbekistan, the minister wants us to do English education, but he wants us to do it in an IT format. There, obviously working with the students directly, but teaching them much stronger IT skills. So I think that when we return and how we return, we'll be able to look at our work a little differently, hopefully for the future, than what we have before we left in March. We have worked really hard to strengthen our training, strengthen our language learning, strengthen our project development, our project monitoring and evaluation. We've developed new online tools that the volunteers, I think, will be thrilled with. We're figuring out how to give them the tablets so they can be out there and really work side by side the counterparts in ways that they were not able to do before. So I also want to share, we have a new program, which is very much 60th anniversary program called the Virtual Service Pilot Program. And we have 47 evacuated return volunteers who are working online in a virtual program in 9 countries. And they've committed 5 to 15 hours a week online for 10 weeks. And they are actually back at sites virtually now that they were in before, doing projects related to PEPFAR and other programs that we've had. We're testing it. It's a pilot. Again, these are not volunteers. They're service participants, because volunteers are in the country. But these are for return volunteers. If this pilot goes well, I'm looking to really expand this program so that many more return volunteers can, with the support of our staff in country, do virtual work with communities in our Peace Corps countries. So stay tuned. We'll know a lot more the 15th of December when we evaluate this program. Just in closing, I know that Peace Corps, our mission and our 3 goals are as important now as they were in 1961, if even not more important now. We have become increasingly interconnected as a global entity, and who we are on the ground in countries as we learn, even as we help give, bring back, as Andrew said, who we become in the United States for the rest of our lives, and that partnership with those of whom that we work with in country also becomes stronger. We are connected, we are strong, countries are pleased, countries want us, and we are ready to get back as soon as we can make that happen. So with that, I want to say thank you. And I know we took just a little longer than we had suggested, but I think we still have plenty of time for questions.
Yeah, great. That was a lot. And thank you so much. We've all heard it as of late, never waste a good crisis. And clearly you and Shannon and Andrew have been busy taking us, what are the things we won't stop saying yes to? And to hear you, Dr. Jody, talk about, technology and how it's not going away and how we keep that in place. Thanks for taking the time. We had a question earlier, but it feels like you did a great job answering. It was really about reentry and what it might look like. And so you were really clear on that. I will add to that question. I love, Andrew, I love the story about the mentoring piece that the folks from Uzbekistan arranged. And that was really a beautiful story, that they just opened their arms and said, because we know that's traumatic, right? That's real trauma. And so I will just say, as someone who's been working from home, and who actually many of the folks on the call are used to moving in the community in a rich and deep way, how difficult it is to say, this is when we're going to go back. This is when, And how do we manage those expectations so that there's not this, because that's demoralizing. I have found just personally to think, okay, you know, and then there's this like another punch to the gut when you realize, oh, that's not realistic, or it's, so if you could say a bit about that, and then also all of us having served know how important the in-country folks are and how they're closely tethered to the Peace Corps organization. And so we have a curiosity here about, are they furloughed? Are they, you know, they don't have volunteers. So how are we engaging them, and what's their own viability, if you will, in many of these countries? Thanks. And then we'll keep watching for questions.
Excuse me. Okay, the first two, wonderful questions. Yes, it's up and down. We have taken, starting about 2 months ago, to calling this within Peace Corps, because, you know, even as those RPCVs and those that want to go back have to go with that up and down, we as staff, boy, do we go up and down. So we created what we call a turtle race. And so we have all these turtles that are working towards return. And what I love about the turtle race is that, you know, that turtles really don't like to race. And so you start nudging them, and then they go to sleep, or they want to take off their lid, or they fall in love, or they do whatever they do. And we'll get a turtle that's pretty close to going back, and then, you know, turtle turns around and goes backwards. But by trying to think of it in those terms, we're appreciating that we can be very strong with the process, but we have a part of this that is out of our control, and that we have to live with a part that is a bit out of our control. And keeping upbeat is so important about the long term, and talking about it being over a year, that this is a process over a 12-month part, you know, and maybe one country was just about there and now it has to go back 3 months. But we're there for each other as we have these conversations, which includes, which I think the question about the host country nationals is a really, really important one. All of our host country national staff are fully with us. Because of our budget, we have not had to furlough anybody. We have not had to let anybody go. They are key. And in fact, we help prepare the front end of the return. And then I helped us as we went through, it's a relay race. And we transferred the baton to the host country national staff, because now, as we have a framework for returning, you are the ones that are working with the counterparts. You're the ones that are working with the ministries. You are the ones that are developing the training programs in the countries for us to return. They have been so busy. Our medical staff, our doctors are key. They now know as much in the country as just about anybody about COVID. So they've stayed strong. One final piece, and related to those questions, and Andrew and Shannon have heard me say this a lot. When we're on Zoom, our faces are all equal. We're all the same size. We all have similar backgrounds. We all have cats that cross the computer. We have kids that run across. We have, you name it, and it's all equal. Whether we're a program assistant in Costa Rica, whether we're the training director in Mongolia, whether we're me. And what has been a great gift to me is that through Zoom, our partnership and our respect, our mutual respect and mutual family with the host country national partners has truly become an us, because they're fully participant, sorry for my hands, they're fully participant in our conversations, because we can bring them all in. We can put upwards of 1,000 people on Zoom. So we have the conversations. We meet and we mix and we meet to make them such an active part of our return. And we have gotten I have gotten so attached to some of the host country national leadership and what they've done in mentoring Americans of mentoring people in Washington about a lot of different projects and activities that need to be done. It is, you know, when you look for lemonade in all of this, that is a really important part of the lemonade. They are key and wonderful to who we are and are going back.
Suzanne, I hope you're reading in the chat because I've totally just been caught up with the poet Jody Olsen here. I mean, that was really beautiful. We've been doing a lot of Zoom bashing in my world, and so that was a great reframe for me. I really appreciate that reset of kind of equity, you know, among all of us, and you nailed it with the cat thing. And so Suzanne, can you tee up another question for these? Otherwise, I'll start gushing about Andrew. So
I think we can hold some of the questions for Andrew because I think there's some more questions about the reopening that people would be interested in. I want to give a shout out, since he was my country director, Ken Goodson has joined, Jody. He's a fabulous individual. Everybody should message him and get to know him. A couple of questions related to reentry that people are asking are questions around if there is a focus on, for instance, more IT-based or like public health or something where you might need to be in a more urban setting or more central setting. How will that impact some of the placements? And then as related, if a focus is on, for instance, virtual connections, how will that impact those small and rural communities? And what is really one of the goals of Peace Corps around connecting as individuals, which you make a great point about us all being on Zoom, but can still be difficult if you're only meeting electronically.
Oh, yeah. The answer, the very definitive answer to the questions that are being asked is, we don't know. I'll go a little farther, but embedded in that question is fascinating because this is what we're all discovering. We know we can't be traditional, at least for the next several months, because communities have been isolated. Communities have had to wear masks. Communities have had to stay home. Counterparts have had to stay home. Our staff have had to stay home. What we've been going through here, our countries have been going through, they have been impacted. What they look for as we return is a little different than what it was before, even as our own sense of self has been impacted. So it is about a return. It is about being physically present. That is what Peace Corps is. It must stay being physically present. In the beginning, do we stay 6 feet apart? Do we wear a mask? Do we work in more urban areas? Do we do IT? Do we do public health? We're discovering that now together because we don't know. And do we do that for 2 months? And then as in that particular country, COVID dissipates, do we do more of interactive? We don't know. Mongolia, for example, has no COVID. But the reason it has no COVID is it doesn't allow anybody in and doesn't even really have any flights. So at the point that we go back to Mongolia, we'll probably go back being very different than going back to Morocco, which has been managing really high amounts of COVID. So we have to work with what the country asks us and where they ask us to be and how they ask us to interact. And which makes it very complex because I don't want to second guess a country and what it needs us to do, particularly in the beginning. So it's a little more vague answer than I would like to give. In 3 months and in 5 months, I can give you a much more specific answer. But right at the moment, we're learning. We're learning every day as we do this.
And then, sorry, Andrew, go on.
I was just going to add one quick thing because it was touched on one of the questions that Director Olsen answered. I think you asked around sort of IT and what that meant. I think it's a really important piece to think about for IT. I mean, we think about connectivity, but really it's about access to information. And one of the projects that Shannon knows a whole lot about is something called Solar Spell, which is a partnership with Arizona State University, which is essentially, and Shannon can elaborate and tell much more about it better than I can, but the idea of almost like internet in a box where you don't need to be connected to the network in order to share information. And it's a really innovative way of bringing sort of the benefits of the internet to sort of more rural areas that don't have access. And Shannon, I don't know if you want to say more about it, but I think that's, again, don't just think about internet IT as connectivity, but it's access to information.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Yeah, really quick, we did a wonderful partnership this May, launched a Solar Spell. It's a digital library that's in a little box that's powered by the sun. And we're able to provide our volunteers with that device, and it has videos, it has tutorials, it teaches English as a second language. It really brings the people in the communities that the volunteers work with in remote areas to information that you or I would get out of a library. So it's been revolutionary for the teaching of or the instruction from our volunteers, and the information and access that it provides the communities that we serve in. So yeah, we're doing some innovative things in the field. Good point, Andrew.
And staying with that, because I think there'll be a lot more of those innovative type programs. But you note there's a key piece in that. The volunteer is by the teacher, is by the headmaster, is by the students. It is still the local language. It is still eating that fufu together or that couscous together. It is building trust. And it's the trust that enables the volunteer and the school team together to move into Solar Spell opportunities. And that's why, however we work virtually, we really work side by side. That is key, and that will never go away.
Related to reopening, there's been a couple questions around health and rehiring of staff, including, for instance, if someone, for the health issue, if someone doesn't make the first cut or is 65, are they still considered at risk? Will they be considered for the next program? And then are you also rehiring staff that have been evacuated? And in the chat, I'll put the answer to the Mongolia thing, my theory.
Oh, that's right. You're Mongolia. Okay. First, the Peace Corps staff, about a third of the U.S. direct hire staff, maybe upwards even of a half, were evacuated. Almost all have gone back now. We have pretty close to full U.S. staff, and we have upwards of 3 U.S. staff members in each country. We're following the embassy procedures for our return, and that has been working well. And we hire and bring new people on as we do normally, and they return and their families are returning to country. Now, that means in many of the cases that 1, they all quarantine, and 2, many of them are working from home in the countries where they're serving, because in those countries, they still can't actively go back to their offices. Now, vis-a-vis the volunteers, it's a very good question. And so as I said, the first group have what we would say is more rigid standards. And by the way, in terms of comorbidity, age is not really a comorbidity. For those of you who are a little older, hey, there I am. It's not in itself comorbidity. It happens to be the issues that come with age. So if you're totally healthy, the chances are that you might be able to go back. And the answer is yes, for later. Particularly when we get to a point that, let's say there is the vaccine and that we can have that, which I am thinking, again, with some of the conversations, we're talking about months, not a year, that it opens up opportunities for those who otherwise would not be able to go. So I'm hoping that it opens up for others.
I'm going to do just a quick time check so everybody's aware that we're 7 o'clock our time is around the time that we'll start tying this up. So we'll try to get a couple more questions in. I'll try. There's a lot of questions about reopening, and so I'll do one more, and then we can do some for Andrew related to the third goal, which I think is something that we all have a power to impact. Some of the questions related to reopening also includes, will Peace Corps response be opening soon? And if someone was in the stages of applying, where will they be considered compared to evacuated or new applications?
Okay, one, Peace Corps response, yes, that's going forward with the other. I should have mentioned that before. For the very first round, again, because it's small numbers, we're giving strong preference to the RPCVs for obvious reasons. And so then, but within months, then it opens, and as it opens, then it can be with those who were ready to go but couldn't go, and then continuing with those that we're recruiting to go. So you're watching a flower. Terrible example. No, flowers are beautiful, but I don't describe it very well. But we start small and hopefully with the ERPCVs first, and then by month, we're able to grow it outward.
And Director Olsen, may I add one tidbit that I think the RPCVs of Colorado would be very proud to know? Since our evacuation to as of November 1st, we have 183 applicants from the state of Colorado who want to serve in Peace Corps. That is huge. And it says so much about Colorado. Furthermore, since Peace Corps' inception, we've had 6,996 RPCVs from the state of Colorado. You guys are amazing.
And I just want to add, and I know Shannon, or we're trying to wrap this, but part of that richness shows up in the Rotary Peace Corps partner piece. So Dr. Jody, just a couple sentences on that, because that really is born of this deep foundation of Peace Corps, and then folks go on, as Andrew talked about, to serve the community. So we need some strokes there.
Okay, we love the partnership, and I'm going to turn it to Shannon because she's in charge of it, the partnership, and she loves the partnership. And it's shout out to Steve again, Steve Warner. Okay, go Shannon.
Our Steve Warner, Charlie Hunt, and Kim, and a few others partnering for peace has been amazing. I tell you, you guys keep Peace Corps on the map, not just in Colorado, but all over the globe, and especially throughout the United States through the Rotary Network. It has been so wonderful to be able to work with Charlie and Steve. And I've been with the agency for 3 years come November 27th. And the first people that my immediate director at the time, Ashley Bell, told me I had to meet was Charlie and Steve, because those guys were going to get you connected. And they never disappointed. And if it were not for them, we would not have been able to revitalize our Rotary partnership. You just provide so many platforms for us to speak, again, throughout the United States, especially for Jody at conferences, even myself at a conference. The partnership has been incredible. You've really helped us to form ways of for Rotarians to engage Peace Corps volunteers and Peace Corps posts, as well as showing us how Peace Corps can engage Rotary. So you guys have done a wonderful job and have provided so many resources for us, and you've helped us tremendously with recruiting. The recruiting has been amazing. You provided access to our recruiters to be able to talk to lots of folks in Colorado, as well as Rotarians. So I know you guys are rock stars in Colorado, but everyone here needs to know that you're rock stars for Peace Corps. And we so appreciate everything that you've helped us to do, especially during our greatest time of need, when we had so many evacuees come from across the globe back into the US. You were the first to reach out and offer resources to our evacuees, offering them places to stay, offering them ways to connect or have housing. I mean, you guys are amazing. So I probably said too much, but I could never say enough about you guys. So thank you. Was that good, Jody?
Oh, hey, yeah, that was really good.
Is that all right, Jeannie? All right.
So I'm going to call out for Jody, Shannon, and Andrew, there's a couple questions in the chat that you might just want to connect with those people as we do closing remarks around, like, if someone's interested in this kind of presentation for their state or their group, who should they contact, and other connections. So I'll just call attention to the chat for that. I think as a kind of a closing, since we all are RPCVs, and Charlie pointed this out in a question earlier about some of the real value and power of Peace Corps is when we return home in what we do. And so is there something that we can do as RPCVs or generally the Peace Corps program to really increase that value and help support Peace Corps going forward?
Let me start with something and then I'll turn it over to Andrew very quickly. But we're working much more aggressively to combine our recruiting effort with RPCVs. We haven't been great, and I feel kind of badly that we have not been great. And so we're doing more outreach to you with how you can play a role, particularly at the universities virtually, and even across the country virtually, to be able to talk about your experience. So stay tuned, because we're building that as fast as we can now to really bring you farther into the recruiting process. Andrew?
Thanks so much. I mean, one of the challenges that we really have is just being able to stay in contact with folks. We do a really good job, I think, when people initially get back and help them support with some of their career transition. But after that point, we frequently lose contact. And once we lose contact, it's really difficult to sort of get back in touch with folks. And so, really encourage folks. I put a link in the chat there about how you can sort of, get back in touch with us. And that is so important, because if we can't connect with you and we can't get in contact with you, then really anything else after that is almost impossible. And so the best way to do that, I put a link to the website, which is peacecorps.gov/RPCV. And if you go there, you can log into the RPCV portal, and we'll make sure you can do different things like register for events that we have. And I would say that, I don't think we mentioned this, but if you do have an interest in doing other types of events like this, I think right now, if there's anybody on here, they can get in touch with me directly, and I'll just drop my name in the chat. So really, the best thing we can do is stay in touch, and then from there we can find different ways to sort of build and connect moving forward.
In addition,
I have something to add too.
Oh, okay. Let me just say something, and then Shannon. In addition to what Andrew has put up there, if you all could summarize the questions that we were not able to answer, because they're really good questions, I want to make sure that we get back to you all with some answers and a little bit more discussion that we're not able to do now. Shannon.
Yes, so we are celebrating our 60th year of Peace Corps, and we're working on putting together some proclamations for celebrating the 60th year, and we're wanting to get in touch with our local governors and mayors. So I know that more than Colorado is represented on this call tonight, and Andrew and I are working together to work through this. So if you might have any contacts or anything that you'd like to suggest that we can connect locally with local government to acknowledge the service of National Volunteer Service through Peace Corps volunteers, we'd love for you to help us in that regard. I could be reached at partnerships@peacecorps.gov. Would love your help in that project that we're getting ready to work on. That's it.
That's it. Anything else, Suzanne, Charlie? Again, I didn't disappoint me, and this was fantastic. And especially, I would say on a night like this, right? All of us on this call could use this really warm connection, and you've got, yeah, exactly. So I'm just offering a big thank you. Charlie, anything?
I do have some thank yous to do, but Jody, I think we had allowed a little bit of time if you want to. Do you have any closing remarks before I go into my thank yous?
Oh my, no, we were a little bit. Let me just say, stay strong. And the commitment to going back and the support we get for going back particularly among those who have the purse strings, is because of you all. Not specifically advocating necessarily, but it's who you are in the communities. It's who you are. And they refer, when we go on the hill, they refer, oh, the volunteers I know in my community or in my state, or they did this or they did this. It's all that you're doing that is our greatest advocacy for being able to go back and to go back in our 60th year. So stay strong, stay affirming about Peace Corps. It is fine. We are doing well. We're getting back. And so just keep that momentum in whomever you talk to, wherever you go, keep that momentum because it is there. It is strong. We're strong.
Jody, thank you very much. This has been wonderful. So just first, a big thanks to you and Andrew for taking the time in the middle of your evening, because you're on the East Coast, to present to us. This has given us a significant insight to where Peace Corps stands and what it's doing today. Thanks to Jeannie and Suzanne for great work in handling the questions and keeping the conversation lively. And thanks to Shannon Kendrick. Shannon is the Director of Strategic Partnership and Intergovernmental Affairs and has been the point person in developing the run of show this evening and briefing Jody and Andrew. And I'm so happy to see your face this evening. Big thanks to Niza Voller, who has been handling the Zoom side of the meeting. And thanks to Ann Baker for allowing us to use the NPCA Zoom link. And thanks.
And let me do a shout out to NPCA. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yay. We love NPCA.
Thanks to my board for all the good work you do in making our work generative for the Colorado community. And a big thanks to Steve Warner, who initiated the idea of doing this event. Steve always makes me think in bigger terms. Thanks, Steve. And thanks to all of you for your questions and your continued interest in the organization that, if you are like me, significantly changed your life. Thank you, everyone. We're going to take a 2-minute break. If you want to hang around, we're going to do a brief general meeting for RPCV of Colorado. If you're not from Colorado and you just want to listen in and hear what we're up to, please, you're invited to stay.
Nice cup, Charlie.
Thanks, Niza. Just in case you've been paying attention to me, I've had 2 drinks going. I have my herbal tea with my Peace Corps branding on it. And I have my Colorado beer too. Steve Werner, if you're still on the call, I didn't see a beer glass in your hand tonight. What's going on? So we're about 2 minutes after the meeting. I hope everyone thoroughly enjoyed that and really feel informed. But we're going to move on to a brief general meeting for RPCVs of Colorado. And I will kick it off. And I'm going to call on a couple of board members to also talk about some of the things that we've been doing. So one of the things is, and you will see this coming out in email, I went out in our last newsletter, is that the Don Curtis Fund is now the Curtis Family Fund. And the reason for that is that one of our RPCV Colorado members pointed out to me, his wife Gloria has, even though she's never served on the board, has been extremely active in the organization over the years and has been very supportive and taking the lead on a number of things. And so I put it to Don and Gloria, it's like, should we change this to the Curtis Family Fund or a slightly different name? And Don said to me, he said, you know, it's also not just about me and Gloria. Our daughter has been a Peace Corps volunteer too. So I asked them, so what do you think? And they said either the Curtis Fund or the Curtis Family Fund. And the board has decided on the Curtis Family Fund. So when emails going forward, communication is going forward, you will see that slight change, but it still is. The Curtises have been extremely active in the Peace Corps community and certainly have been very active in RPCVs of Colorado. And with that as the theme at the moment, I'm going to ask Nancy to report on some recent gives that the Curtis Family Fund has done here in Colorado. Nancy? You're muted.
Oh.
By the way, Nancy is our secretary for RPCV of Colorado, and she is filling in for Sheila Mahoney this evening, who is the grants chair.
Thank you. So as Charlie just mentioned, the grants chairperson is Sheila Mahoney, and she's not able to be here this evening. And so asked if I could step in and give a little summary of what was happening. Sheila has done she's one of the most thorough, really conscientious people I know, and did a great job on leading this committee. So essentially, as Charlie said, the Curtis, what used to be called the Don Curtis Fund, is now the Curtis Family Fund. And from that fund, generally what's happened is we've been able to provide grants of $500 to $1,000 to 2 or 3 worthy projects for the year. Given right now that there are no volunteers in country, we were then presented with the kind of question, what do we do about that and how do we redirect funds? So the decision was made to redirect those funds to organizations in Colorado, nonprofit organizations that fall within, their programs fall within the range of what our 3-year strategic plan is. And the 3-year strategic plan deals with 2 issues. One is homelessness, which, as many of us know, has just been increasingly a problem in Colorado. And the other is immigrant and refugee issues. So we put out an invitation for organizations to apply for an award for that. We had about 10 plus organizations apply for the grant. It was a great committee that reviewed all those applications. And we did also have very specific criteria. I think Arvis was especially instrumental, Arvis Layton, in helping to define the criteria. So it was very pointed with specific things that we were looking for. One of those was whether it aligned with the strategic plan. And I think that was the most important, and we gave the greatest weight to that. That is that the organizations were directed toward homelessness and or immigration issues. Another of the criteria was whether it was a specific project. We didn't want to just send the money for a kind of vague idea, but rather a specific project where it would be directed. And another important criteria was where would it have the greatest impact. If we were looking at an organization whose budget is within the millions of dollars, we felt like a grant that was $500 to $1,000 would not have as great impact. And so we were looking toward more pointed organizations. So as the committee reviewed and looked at all of those, we came up with initially 2 organizations that we awarded $1,000 to. One of them is Colorado Coalition for the Homeless. And again, looking at the criteria for it being for a specific project, that money would be for what they call the Renaissance Veteran Apartments at Fitzsimmons. So opening in November 2020, there will be 60 units of permanent supportive housing to end veteran homelessness. And specifically, they were awarded $1,000, and that will be toward the purchases of basic furniture, housewares for those apartments. The second award that was given and decided on was, again, $1,000 to the Village Institute. And that is an institute described as live, learn, work center designed with and for refugee women and their families. It's a holistic housing, community integration, job readiness program, along with multicultural childcare center and refugee entrepreneur incubator. Really strong program. That was the second. Actually, as we looked at the resources that we had, we were able to redirect some additional funds that were not used within the budget because of the pandemic. And then we awarded a third award to Casa de Paz, and that was a $500 award. Casa de Paz is an organization that we've been working with as volunteers in the past year or so. Carol Tamaye has done a fabulous job in coordinating some of the immigrant refugee issue volunteer programs. And that's a program that is really some of the most vulnerable members of Colorado. Serves immigrant asylum seekers who have been held in detention for many months. And so there is a house that provides shelter, meals, transportation to people who have been released from the ICE detention center. And so we were really happy to add to the volunteer work for those, this $500 grant. Just quickly, there were organizations that were not awarded a grant. We'll be sending out, I'll send out maybe in a week or so, a notification, not a newsletter, information about those. So if people are interested in contributing, we'll provide you with all of that. Briefly, those projects, organizations are Project Worthmore, the International Association for Rural and Urban Development, the International Rescue Committee, Rocky Mountain Immigrant Advocacy Network, Colorado Hosting Asylum Network, Brown Bag Ministries, Collective Creando Cambios, and Homeward 2020. And so what we'll do for those organizations is send out information to everybody in our distribution list, which is close to 2,000 people, information about those organizations, so that if people want to independently make a contribution to any of them, they'll be able to. Thanks.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thank
Just
you.
in case some of you don't know, Nancy and I are married. I'm upstairs and she is downstairs. With that in mind, let's see, we're going to move on to the next thing. Carol Tumaye is the leader of our committee for working with immigrants and refugees under our service committee, and she's going to give you a brief update, and she's going to mention Casa de Paz again. So on the same topic. Carol.
Thank you, Charlie, and thank you for the great intro, Nancy. The first thing I'm going to do is give credit where credit is due and check your chat for the other members of this great committee. Our committee, as Nancy and Charlie both referred to, is focusing on this strategic goal related to supporting immigrants and refugees who call Colorado home. And while this committee has been on hiatus for the greater part of the COVID experience, we have maintained several activities related to meal preparation for the folks who have been released from the Casa de Paz Detention Center. As RPCVs, we know that happy is a heart that is well fed. And so RPCVs in Colorado have done a beautiful job over the last 8 months or so, providing nutritious, delicious, healthy meals to these detainees. I'll plop into the chat again. We have 3 additional meal planning sessions for November 24th, December 23rd, and January 14th. And again, I'll put those in the chat, and I'll also put the sign up link in the chat. And they go out through Nancy's fabulous newsletters as well. So keep your eye out on the newsletters for upcoming opportunities to support immigrants and refugees in Colorado. And we, though we're not an active group right this second, looking for volunteers always to help us find other activities that support the community. So I'll put my email in the chat too. If you have any ideas, please do send them forth. And that is what I have for today. Thank you all.
Thanks, Carol. And I really do think that this is something as RPCVs that we can contribute significantly to in our communities, since we do have the cultural background and the language skills. Randy is our membership chair, and Randy's going to give us a brief update on membership.
Sure, and thank you all. I do want to comment, since I feel this is our official annual meeting, I feel I have to proclaim that our membership is strong. We do have 333 members of the organization, which is at a high for the last couple of years. We've done this with Charlie's help through some active recruiting, from trying to convert some of our followers into members, and from showing some appreciation to our members itself. I want to thank some of our sustaining members who really helped us out this year when we hit hard budgets. By becoming a sustaining member, you really support the organization in strong times, in weak times, when our budget gets a little light. So thank you to all of you. If you have considered becoming a sustaining member, now's a great time to do it. Could always appreciate the help. I want to plug one of my favorite websites. That's rpcvcolorado.org. Please go check in on us, sign in. If you put in your email address, it'll let you sign in. If you're not a member, it will tell you. And it's right close to the button that says join and become a member. So if you're not a member, please join us. These events don't happen often, but they're great to do. And I would encourage you to participate next time by becoming a member. That's all I have, Charlie.
Thanks, Randy. And that's a perfect lead in to NISA and what's coming up. I think we've got a couple of virtual happy hours that have been an awful lot of fun. I know it's been more challenging as we all get Zoom fatigue, but NISA, what do we have in store?
Everybody. So our next event is our November happy hour. And just to note, that's happening a little early this month. We usually do them on the last Thursday of the month, but what with Thanksgiving, this one's a little earlier, so it's going to be on the 19th of November, and it's from 5:30 to 7 p.m. It's just a chance to chat, share stories about service, and have a drink with some friends. So hope to see you guys there.
Thanks, Lisa. And then I will just wrap up a couple small things to bring all of you up to date. You might find this astounding. I find it astounding. There is currently at University of Denver, there's a Coverdell program there that's part of the Peace Corps organization, and for continued studies and master's program, there's over 60 RPCVs that are in the Coverdell program this year. 60. There's usually like 3 or 4 or 5. It's just an amazing amount. I'm sure some of that is just that with evacuees and job issues going on, if you want to get your master's degree, this is a good time to do it. The other thing I want to mention to all of you is that one of the key things I've been trying to focus on over the past almost 2 years now is to develop regional groups that basically do what we do here in Denver. We are a statewide organization, and I'm really looking to help all the regions develop and to do the things that we do here in Denver. We don't do anything here that you can't be done in other parts of the state. And I will do a big shout out to Fort Collins. Fort Collins is doing a smash up job with this at the moment. They have a leadership team in place that's promoting what they're doing up in Fort Collins. And the board has agreed that as these groups get active and get leadership under them, that there will be a board seat for them. So we're looking forward to having a board seat for Fort Collins sometime very soon. And let's see, I had one more thing that I want to mention. Oh, another thing too, to become a member and why it's a good thing to become a member. Many times I've heard from people that have said, you do everything in Denver. And like, why don't, even if they are from Denver, say, why don't you do a coffee in Aurora? Or why don't you do a coffee out in Morrison? Or why don't we do like a dog get together up in, you fill in the region. So one of the things we're going to be releasing when COVID is a little bit more under control is that if you are a member, you can go into our website and put on our calendar something that you want to do that's regional and local for you. And then we will then promote that through our emails and through our newsletters. So something to look forward to. Doesn't matter what part of the state you're in. I would like to see our calendar just filled up with all kinds of stuff that's happening all around the state. And
just to note on that, you can also post on Facebook, social media. Anyone in Colorado can do that right now. If you have an event, like a virtual event you'd like to promote or something social distance safe, feel free to jump on there and put up your event, especially if you need volunteers. Peace Corps is a great way to mobilize some good people.
Yep, we're all into volunteering. I mean, we wouldn't be here if we weren't into volunteering. That's everything I have to say. And there might be some questions out there. And if you have a question, feel free to unmute and ask.
I have a question, Charlie.
Sure, Diane.
Is there anyone else here besides Randy and myself from Northern Colorado?
Chris and Francis are here.
Mm-hmm. I'm Kathy in Northern Colorado.
Oh.
I'm in Fort Collins.
Yes, you are. I recognize you. Okay, so three of us.
Diane?
What?
Didn't you see us?
Oh, I did. Francis. Oh my gosh. Two of my very dear oldest friends in Fort Collins. Okay, thank you for joining this meeting. It's just you got this costume on. 12, yeah, okay.
12,
Thanks for being here with us. Were you able to hear the director speak? Great, great. Hope we'll see you soon.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
I think kind of piggybacking there, let me just say, I really love the idea that anybody in the state can post to our Facebook or any of the social media, and that they'll now be able to post to the website. Also, if anybody in the other regions of the state have something that they would like to be included in the newsletter, to send that along to me. And that's information at rpcvcolorado.org. That's all.
Charlie, can I say something?
Certainly, Ariane Berger. She is a previous president of RPCV of Colorado.
Hi, guys. Nice to see you.
Ariane.
I missed seeing you all at the picnic this summer. I just wanted to give a little plug. Charlie and Jody and many people tonight talked about the Rotary Peace Corps connection. And I just wanted to let you all know that there is actually a Rotary Club in Colorado, and we don't have any boundaries with members from all over, that is comprised entirely of RPCVs. Carol is one of our members, and Gas, who is on this call. Our dues are very affordable. It was definitely a challenge for me in joining Rotary until now. And so if you're interested in continuing service through an organization like Rotary, we would love to have you. We are meeting virtually. And so, like I said, you can meet with us no matter where you live. You can meet from your basement. I saw someone post that that's where they are right now. And we would love to have you. So Charlie is one of our mentors.
Yeah.
And please reach out to Charlie. You know how to get a hold of him for sure. And we will give you some more information about that. So another way to make that connection between Peace Corps and Rotary. So great to see you all. Stay safe.
Thanks, Ariane. I'm just, some of you might be wondering, it's like, why is there a partnership? And the reason for that, a group of us here in Colorado instigated it. And the basic underlying reason for it is that Peace Corps' focuses and Rotary's focuses are almost identical in terms of what we do as organizations. And that is the reason why there was an MOU signed between the two organizations starting in 2015 and has continued through 2018. And that's one reason why I know Shannon Kendrick and I get to know a lot of people in the Peace Corps office. Alan from Hawaii, who is also in this meeting tonight, is also an RPCV Rotarian, and he's also a member or a board member of RPCVs of Hawaii. So
hello to you all. Warm aloha from Hawaii. We have another RPCV Rotarian. You see her on the screen there, Sally O'Brien, very, very good friend of mine. And I don't know, I can't recall exactly how I met you, Charlie, but as all of you probably know, you know, once you know Charlie, it just keeps going on, and he introduces you to all these other people, and I've met Steve, etc. And now I'm being asked to work on the Partnering for Peace subcommittee, or yeah, I guess committee, the outreach committee. So I'm getting very much involved with all of you in Colorado, and it's interesting. I look forward to getting to see more of all of you as I keep in contact with Charlie.
Thanks, Alan. And I will tell you exactly how I met you. I met your district, Rotary District Governor at a zone institute that was here in Denver. And she said to me, you need to meet Alan. He's an RPCV and he's a Rotarian. So that's how I know you. Is there any other questions?
Charlie?
Not, yes, Diane?
Yes. 4 years ago, I did some volunteer medical work in Nepal. And after we trekked and hauled our medical equipment and set up our tents, I looked around the buildings that were on the campus. Well, campus, that's too grand a word. There were buildings there that housed patients, particularly with infectious diseases. And I went to one of those buildings, and on the front of the building was a plaque that said, it said funds for this building donated by Rotary Club of Gwinnett, Georgia. Gwinnett, Georgia. I mean, so I took a picture of it and I sent it to the Rotary Club in Gwinnett, Georgia, and they were thrilled to know that their building was actually being put to good use way across the ocean in Nepal. So I'm just saying the Rotary Club is doing good work in the same places where Peace Corps has been functioning as well. So thank you guys for your, and here she is down here. Everybody for your connection with the Rotary Club. I never knew that until I saw that plaque in Nepal. I never knew we had a connection with you.
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually was a Rotarian before I became a Peace Corps volunteer. Rotary has a motto that says service above self. And I often say service above self, that's a Peace Corps volunteer. So there's real connection there. And in my first week on island at my site, I got someone coming around to my hut and said to me, there's some Rotarians that are here working on a project at our school. And I was like, what? I got to go meet these guys. So
isn't that great? Great story.
Yeah. Anyone else? And if not, I'll let you all exit from the meeting, and thank you everyone for showing up and staying a little bit later so we can go through some RPCV of Colorado stuff. Nizza, can I ask you, I'm not sure how the recording gets saved, but if you can just give me a heads up later on how to do where that is, we'd appreciate it. And I think you have to close the meeting out officially as the host, yes? Okay, thanks everyone. See you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Aloha.
Adios.
Can't